Hello, we're having a little inception kind of moment. This is me from the end of the video, because I went to edit my video and I'm really irritated because a whole like, I don't know why every once in a while Teams decides to kill my sound. The reason I film on Teams is because my MacBook sucks and it only records videos for like 30 seconds and then it's just like, no, we're done. So this is actually part two of what's probably going to be 3 videos of me seeing how much I can learn in a week. I'm basically trying to complete this challenge right here that I'll put right here that I set for myself in the last video. And yeah, but anyways, so I had filmed, like, I had like a piece of me basically running, like, trying the code for a Hopfield network for the first time. All the audio got taken out. So I'm just gonna do like a zoom through so you can see everything that I did because this week, so basically I was trying to show me like I ran a Hopfield network for the first time. That took me a while. I had to search different ones. I learned more about Hopfield networks, but unfortunately, yeah, so I'm just gonna do a zoom through so you can appreciate how much I've learned this week because the whole intention, the whole challenge was to see how much I learned in a week. Okay, so that was really annoying. I also, because this is going to be referenced in the next clip, I was also talking about predictive processing and I was talking about how, okay, a voiceover moment here. I was telling an anecdote about how I was talking to my mom on the phone and we were like, my mom and I like to talk about all these crazy little like worldview kind of philosophies. And my mom was telling me about what now I'm pretty sure is quantum leaping, but she didn't use those words. She was talking about like going through all these different like potential lives and like imagining what your life could be. So I think she was talking about quantum leaping, but I'm not sure. And then I was telling her about how I've been learning Python and basically I've been imagining like I was telling her, I was explaining to her like functions and like all this stuff. And I was like, I've been imagining basically my brain as like a Python. I was like, what's the Python of my brain? And I was telling her how I was pre-programming my brain like as a joke. Like I was like, I've been seeing my brain as like a program. And yeah, so I started talking about Andy Clark's predictive processing model or yeah, I think he wrote it. I don't know if he actually, yeah, I'm pretty sure he originated it because it'll come up later. But anyways, I was talking to her about I was exploring predictive processing and I was saying how I was just basically going on a little jokey anecdote about how I made like a Python version of predictive processing, like a simple one, not an actual real complex one, as a joke because I was just playing around the other day. And then I went on this whole little joke anecdote about how I was reprogramming my brain with like Python and how I was like, okay, because I was reading about how somebody said the words in something I read that brains are like organic computers. And I was saying how I usually like when I get stressed out, it's like my mind just goes and races. And I was like, that's a function. I was like, my habits are like functions. I was like, that's a function of me being like, if your brain is stressed, like if arousal is above 5 or something, go crazy. But I was like telling my mom, I was like, I was reprogramming so that like if arousal is above 5, then I take 3 deep breaths. And I was just having this whole fun time just talking about Python and exploring that. But unfortunately, the sound got booted. That's pretty much all you need to know. So yeah, just to show you how like the point is to see how much can I learn in a week. And I did learn a lot about Hopfield networks and I was like writing my first code. So yeah, unfortunately it all got deleted. Hello, I just returned from school. It's Thursday at almost 5 p.m. right now. I'm so drained, but before I got jumped into like other stuff and went to take a chill pill and like just watch TV, I wanted to do a little brain dump moment because I kind of had a big learning day. Truly, this week, like, I guess I set the intention, but the amount that I've been learning this week has actually been ridiculous because I had class today. We had technically was in the morning, we were meant to have empirical studies. Usually we have empirical studies, but I guess I missed the memo that empirical studies is like what over for the semester. So I got there, nobody was there. And I was proud of myself because I was actually early and everything, but So then I chilled and I did some work. Then I had social psychology. And today was the most random day. Today in social psychology, we were talking about cortical attention. So it's this week has been so aligned. Like today, I was like, everything feels so aligned today. Because we actually were even, Andy Clark was even mentioned in our lecture, who I was talking about in the last clip. I was not expecting. So we talked about bottom up processing and top down processing. And we got all these super cool examples of how cortical attention works. Like we listened to these audio things and looked at optical illusions, and I was genuinely like I was tuned in. And the thing is that so my laptop was dead, and we switched lecture halls, and this one doesn't have an outlet spot, but it actually opened a whole new world for me because I was like, you know what, like I really like this stuff. Like, I'm just gonna close my laptop. I'm not gonna take any notes and I'm just gonna listen. And I actually think that that works better for me sometimes because I forget that I love neuroscience. Like, it sticks in my memory so much. I feel like I've noticed that if I really like something, like my memory for it is crazy. Or if I really like something, I'm so tuned in and I'm like, I can listen really well. I think sometimes you get in class and you feel like you have to keep taking notes, but it's like it distracts you actually to take notes sometimes. So I just listened just the whole class and it was such a good lecture. And we talked about how the point was that we looked at how cortical attention impacts your social your social life. Not your social life, but how we interact with each other socially. Like we were talking about how in like attention tests, like where the eye is pointing, people are more likely to look that way, but that's also controversial. And then anyway, so then I ran immediately to my cognitive psychology class, which is pretty much neuroscience, so it's been fun. And we were talking again about we even looked at the same optical illusion. It was crazy. We were talking about, let me tell you the name of the class because it was pretty interesting. It was called Embodied and Embedded Cognition. We definitely talk about embodiment. I don't know. Both of the classes were, I don't think this was planned at all because my cognitive psychology class is like a master's level class. And then my social psychology class we share with the undergrad. So I don't think it was like, oh, let's like align them today. It was just really random that that worked out, that we were talking about the mind and like, is the mind like an extension of stuff? We even talked about play cells. I was like, today was my day and my laptop was dead. So all I could do was listen. So I was just listening. Yeah, so it was really good, and I actually ended up writing down like this massive theory. I have such intense theories. I have a lot of theories about dissociative identity disorder. Sneak peek. This is like my big thing. I super interested in dissociative identity disorder, and I think people don't give it the kind of like attention that it deserves. And I have like a theory of it. I made this isn't my Bible like devotional book. You can't see it because I wrote in pink, but I wrote my whole theory of dissociative identity disorder and how it works with like I genuinely think it's a cortical attention issue, and like you get these clusters. I think it like the information does not integrate. This is my theory. I'll give you the sneak peek because it'll come later, but because now we're basing it off of my own theories of sharp wave ripples, basically the information doesn't integrate and it's unconsolidated, and as it because it's not consolidating, like it can't get like fully integrated into your predictions, the predictions that you make. This is like very loose right now. And then I think that the top down is like, if it was not pink, you'd be able to see it better. The top down, oh, I'm forgetting the word, signals, whatever, are like clustering into these clusters. And then like you were like shifting. It it makes more sense in my head, but that's basically my theory. And then we were learning about how attention, I wrote all this down before my laptop died. I thought it was so cool. We were talking about how attention, like it modulates, like it's like no, not modulates. There's like gain modulation where it's like shifting. So like my professor was saying, like if it was a sunny day, you'd be like, okay, I can rely on my top down predictions more. But if it's like a cloudy day, your brain's gonna be like, okay, we should be more looking at like they're not gonna be as right because like we can't see as well and stuff. And I don't know. So we were talking about that, and I was like thinking about that and like does it modulate and like all this crazy stuff. So it was a very interesting day. Anyways, then I saw a girl in my class using one of these guys.
And I was like, I want one day I'll get one of those because I think they're really cool. The reason I was thinking about them, this all makes sense to my ADHD brain. This is like how my brain works. I'll give you the whole line of thinking. So I was looking at one of those. Oh, and then in the class at the same time, we were talking about because the class was actually about like eye tracking and stuff. Like, well, we talked a lot about a lot of different things about the mind and stuff, but we talked about eye tracking and like all these different eye tracking studies. And then at the very end, we had like a brief section moment where we talked about like privacy and how like Samsung, like we were talking about technology and how like for example, Samsung apparently got sued because like they had these like smart TVs, but the smart TVs were like watching everything that everybody did like all the time. And we were talking about technology. And okay, so the reason I was connecting it to the one of those like little tablets, I was like, oh, like this is the thing. All this again, all this is connected in my neurodivergent brain. I was like, I started thinking about that, and what it made me think about was like I was like everything nowadays. I'm like after all this Epstein stuff, I'm like conspiracy theories. I'm sorry, like I'm sorry I didn't give you the credit where credit was due. I was like you see things more than I think, and it's really been having me feel like every conspiracy theory I'm like, you know what, they're right about everything, like everything they say is true. And I feel like every time I'm like recently like all these different conspiracy theories have been like, you know what, people are really on to something. And yeah, I was like schizophrenic community and conspiracy theorists, super my bad for not believing you. But anyways, so then I was looking at those and I was like, they're watching everything we do. Like they want to control and surveil us. I was like, it was like having me think like that. I was like, you know what? After the Epstein stuff, I was like, they're right about everything. And yeah, I've been trying not to get into that mindset too much, but it's kind of hard not to because like the things coming out of it, I'm like, man, conspiracy theories have been saying this so bad. And then I started to think, I was like, I need to switch all of my tech, not all of it, but like I was like, that really does irk me. Like I was like, I want more privacy. That's what it started to make me think. I was like, I don't want to be mass controlled by billionaires. And I was like, I need to see if these will like track your data. If not, I'll get one. And then I started thinking about my Kindle. I have a Kindle, but I haven't used it in a long time. I used to use it a lot more, but I hate Amazon. So I was like, maybe I'll go home, and I've been meaning to jailbreak my Kindle for the longest time. I was like, I need to jailbreak it, but it doesn't need to be right now. I was just like, that's on the activity list. I was like, do I do that today for like a little mental break and have fun doing that? Or do I jump straight into, I was like, I need to start using my VPN more. Do VPNs even work? It's like, I need to be constantly have my VPN on. I need to move to a remote village in the middle of nowhere and change my name and everything. But the last thing that I thought was really interesting was that in my first class, we were talking about the mind, and our professor said something really interesting, which is that some people theorize that like the mind goes beyond just our brain and into other things. Like they're like maybe notebooks are like an extension of your mind. Oh my gosh, everything was so interconnected today. It was crazy. Like now that I think about it, I think maybe my brain was just like I woke up in the mood to make connections. Like I was like everything is connecting for me today, and it was like everything is just so like playing into everything else. You get me? But I was just like I haven't caught up on my little like devotionals for the longest time, and I feel kind of bad because they're just like kind of wholesome, like just like a wholesome habit. I don't know. And I was talking today. There was one that was super interesting today about the cloud, and these are so freaking interesting. Like actually, because they're just like writing from somebody every single day, and they're always something really random and different. I thought this was the coolest idea, but basically there's somebody wrote about like cloud computing, and they were talking about how clouds enable individual devices to direct their resources towards like more important and relevant tasks because you put it like somewhere else. And it was talking about how like it said my tech inclined brain makes me quite fond of the idea of dead loved ones joining an ever growing cloud of witnesses. And it was talking about how like about the afterlife as like a cloud. I thought that was super cool, but yeah, then it was just like I think everything was having me think like I need to reset, like do my whole setup again, like get my notebook set up, get my Kindle set up. I've been doing a lot of that recently. and like I reset my laptops to like towards more learning, and because of that I've been learning more. Like I've been coding, I've been reading, I've been doing all that. That's why I think I was like, I want to set my notebooks up again. You see, in the last video, I set up like an accordion folder for my all the things that I want to write, all the books I want to write. And I feel like that I came home the day after that, I wrote like 6 pages, like just straight up. So I think I've just been wanting to like do a bunch of resets to like make space for all the things that I'm learning and all the things that I'm doing. And that's kind of just been on my mind. So, okay, here is take two. Let me just show you what I learned yesterday. So what I found basically last night is I found these different hot fuel networks. I found one. I was wanting to run one really bad on Jupyter Lab. So I found first this one that was on Kaggle, or maybe this was the second one. I think the first one was actually this one right here. So yeah, this was the first one, and it was on GitHub, and it had all of this. It was a little bit more of an intensive one, so it was basically had like all this. I'll even link it below just for some reason if anybody's interested, but it just had all this information on how to run a specific one. I think this was the first one that I tried. There might have been a different one, but I started reading through it, but then I felt like I wasn't like it was a little bit further than I wanted to. I tried one at some point that was making like an actual like thing, something you could click. Oh, that was I think another day actually. But I was just feeling like so this one was sort of more of an exercise and it wanted you to put your own stuff in and it was also very complex. It wasn't very complex, but it was just a little bit further than I wanted to go. So I didn't basically I just wanted to find something else. So then I went and I found this one, which was on Kaggle. And it was a more simple one. So all that it basically is like you put in these patterns. I learned all this yesterday. Like I had to learn like I was learning everything. And yeah, you put in patterns and you basically put them out and then it comes up with like the recovered patterns. I ran this all on Jupyter Lab for the very first time. So I ran this one that I found, I don't remember where exactly, and it made these patterns that you like click something and it makes like buttons and stuff. But this is the one that they wanted you to put in your own information after a while. So I kind of went for something simpler, which is when I found this one. And you can see that this one is pretty simple. You just put in like I talked myself through everything. You just put in the patterns and then it does all this assigns connection weights and then it outputs everything else. So outputs like original pattern, noisy pattern, and recovered pattern. So I was just kind of figuring out like how does that work? What does that mean? And I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm just gonna see if I ask anything on ChatGPT to see if I like learned anything else. I was trying to understand each piece, so I asked about noisy patterns. Why is it noisy? What does that mean? And that's all I asked ChatGPT, to be honest. That's the only thing. Oh, I also asked about recurrent. I had a question about recurrency. So I was like, there are recurrent neural networks with recurrent connected neurons. What I'm looking at is recurrent excitation in my study. Is that interrelated in terms of function with the recurrent, or do they just happen to have the same word? So I was just trying to understand if recurrent, like if there was something for me to connect there in terms of how I understood it, or if it was just literally like that's just a descriptor. And yeah, but I didn't really go back into this yet because I was like, I just wasn't like my brain just wasn't there. So I might come back to this in my last video because tomorrow's my like I have like 2 more days of this challenge. So let's see, maybe we'll come back to it. So yeah, this actually took me a long time yesterday, but today I just explained it to you in about 3 minutes. So whatever. Basically, yeah. And then I was talking a little bit about my I have another supervisor who I haven't really gotten to speak to. I was talking about how I really, really like his research a lot, and I feel like it's been I basically just needed a second supervisor because I needed to have somebody within my within my department as a supervisor as per the rules of my dissertation. But I kind of was like, he was the one who directed me to the supervisor I have now. He was like, "Oh, maybe this person would be good for you, like better, but if you need like you can come back and like we'll work something out." But he's not a computational neuroscientist or anything, so yeah, but I actually really, really, really like his research. Like really like his work a lot. He works with sharp wave ripples, this first supervisor. And he does like one paper I really liked from him was where he talked about if you could sort of isolate sharp wave ripples in like or isolate I'm not sure if I'm remembering correctly now, it was like isolating memory content. And I thought that was super interesting, super relevant to like what I was doing. I'll probably cite it in my paper. And I thought it was pretty cool because I was thinking about that in a therapeutic context and about the implications that you can sort of isolate memory content out, which also means that you could isolate it in an amnesic context where you could be like, okay, this specific information we're hiding, like traumatic content gone, where it can be sort of recalled really specifically with specific cues. And then I also thought about how you can use that therapeutically, and people actually have been using that already sort of therapeutically. There has been some work on closed loop simulation, and they did it in rats where they showed that they could basically, if the sharp wave ripples were disrupted, it meant that the rats would not consolidate the memory content well enough, and that like that meant that they had less fear extinction, so they wouldn't sort of consolidate like they didn't consolidate the trauma memories well enough, and they kind of got stuck because they weren't sort of creating enough of these sharp wave ripples like appropriately. So that was one of the things that I'll definitely cite in my paper and talk about. But I thought it just gave really good sort of connecting information for that, and how you can sort of re-invoke certain memories in a really isolated and specific way for healing purposes, and to maybe like get the that specific memory content consolidating again is what I got from his work from like my own trauma interest. So yeah, I really liked his. I actually was going through his publications this morning, but I was saying last night how I was like, I haven't really utilized his voice at all in my project because I kind of sold it to him as like, I really need someone from my department. You wouldn't really have to do much of anything. I'm already working with this person that you referred me to, but I just need a second name. And he was more than happy to do that, which was really nice. But I was like, oh, it's kind of a waste because I feel like he's right in my field and he's doing such cool work in exactly that I was like, I want to at least meet one time with him and like talk about everything, and like maybe he would have kind of some advice or some information as to how this I don't know, like it's kind of like, well, I guess I don't super need him, but I just feel like what a waste because he's such a smart person from what I've seen. I haven't met him in person yet, and his work is so aligned with me that it would be a waste to not at least meet for a meeting like one time. So yeah, I'll talk about that in the next clip. But the last thing is that I started to sort of dole out because I was asking questions. I was trying to sort of conceptualize or understand how this would work in my Hopfield network. So I just started to split up some things and like imagine I had questions like basically what I'm going to be sort of feeding into it. Is it going to be like noisy? These noisy patterns, is that what it is? And I guess in one experiment, recurrent excitation is low, and the other it's high. And I was like, once it's down, the memories do improve. So I was like, one thing is missing from what I did this summer, which is that I was also I wanted to demonstrate that yes, the acetylcholine would stop you from consolidating memories, but that once the acetylcholine was down, the memory still consolidated. But I don't know. I need to ask my supervisor, my computational neuroscience one, how that would if that should still be implemented, if that's already implied in what I'm doing, etc. So I just had that question. And then lastly, I guess this recovered pattern. I was just like making the dots kind of click. So recovered pattern. I was like, okay, so this recovered pattern is what I'm looking for in my thing to see like how the trauma memories and how do they go? I guess how do they work? I'm kind of nervous, but I'll see how it goes. And yeah, so on to the next clip. That's really annoying that this all just deleted, but I guess I explained it more succinctly this time anyways.
Good morning. It's 8 a.m. the next day. I've been mentioning how recently I mentioned in the last video how recently I've been like so exhausted, just really exhausted. And right after I did all that, I made myself a sandwich and then I was like, I'm just gonna lay my head down for a second. And I laid down in bed at like 10 p.m. and I was just like out in like half an hour. I wasn't even trying to sleep. And then I woke up and I had slept 10 hours and it was 8 a.m. So I wanted to start the day with earning a star because it's already Friday and I'm like, I feel like I have to get a move on if I want my books and my stuff. And we have 1 star that I think wouldn't be that hard to earn immediately. I also did email my 2 supervisors like 7 p.m. I was like, do the both of you want to meet just one time just so my other supervisor who I was referencing can see what we're doing and like maybe he'd have like some ideas or something. Well, I didn't say it like that, but I said something adjacent to that. So let's see, maybe he would be interested. And I said, if not, it's okay. All right. As you can see, I started to make my cognitive psychology study guide. So I actually am almost kind of done with that. So I'll earn another star for sure. This was the one thing I was like, I don't want to leave this week without these study guides. So here's my learning chart. That means hopefully I should have at least 3. I'm at least earning this Python book this week. If we earn more, I'll be really happy. I'll see if I can find. I saved the book, I think. Um, so the thing I thought would be easy to do this morning would just be this little study guide on the different types of computational neuroscience, like neural networks. Unless that's a really massive question, but I just want to know like the big types and their names. Here's my books. I save a lot of books. I've been saving lots of books recently on like coding and stuff. And it was one of these 2 that I thought that I would get that I found. This is kind of cool. It says a gentle journey through the mathematics of neural networks and making your own using Python. And then this one's about how to code it. I'm thinking I'll get one of these if I get the 3 stars. And then if I get 1 more star, we'll choose a different one. Maybe I'll get a more like hard Python book. Okay. Well, I was gonna make this into like my own study guide, but this is a website that has just a bunch of neural networks. I've been thinking I'm gonna print all my little study guides out next week when I'm on I think next week when I'm on campus because my printer at work only doesn't print in color, and I think I'm gonna keep them all in a folder. Cause I kind of like I made one for stats, and it's kind of nice to look back on it. So that's my plan. All right. I actually have learned the types of learning before, but just as a refresher, I think that mine would be, it's gonna be unsupervised learning, I think. I think? Is it this type of learning? A question for myself for later. I don't know the answer yet. All right. I have questions. One thing I do when I learn, I ask a lot of questions. A lot of questions. Okay. So I just learned about the MCP neurons, and I learned it sounds like it's the same thing as the summations that we learned in my last video. Were they the ones who invented that concept? Or is it different? Do all of them? Okay, so they are the first to ever use the summation. I was wondering if lots of different systems use the same type of neuron still, or no. Okay, so they do. They also use them in Hopfield networks. I'm probably gonna write all this down too. So, okay, so they did not come to play. Like this is apparently very, very effective. And it's used in a lot of different things. I always have a million questions. I thought a Hopfield network was a type of recurrent neural network, but I guess I must be wrong. Or maybe it's more complicated than that. But I'm not going to jump into that right now. I want to finish. What is a Zor question? Zor question. XOR shore question. Zor question. So next we have, this is the MCP neurons. Now we have perceptrons are next. You know, I think it's actually pretty funny how learning is not a very linear process, because when I was first starting this whole thing, like I knew nothing. I hadn't read, like I hadn't really started reading papers yet, even that much, just a little bit. And I was just imagining like, okay, I want to do this project. This was like way back like last year. I actually tried to watch videos on like how computational models work, or how this stuff worked, and like how neural networks worked. And I remember seeing a lot of the same information, and I just didn't, I mean, I understood the concept, but it just looked so far beyond my scope of what I could understand. And I felt a bit nervous. Like I would see stuff like this and I was like, I don't fully understand or grasp it. I think it actually helped me to go a whole completely different route and go like build all the knowledge that I did know and just like ease into it more over time, and even run my very, very bad computational model that I ran over the summer on ChatGPT. All these different things I think helped me a lot, because then I could understand, like, I could kind of understand better almost like the physicality of, it's not really physical, it's all code, but like the how this works in a tangible sense. And I think getting a little bit of hands-on experience, even if it wasn't like the best hands-on experience ever, actually trying to like learning more about what systems neuroscience work like and everything. And I know these are not always in neuroscience that we use them, but I think I could look back and I could understand, okay, these are neurons and the neurons are going to do this and I need them to do that because they need to do this. Versus when I was just like, I think sometimes that's the interesting thing, is that everybody learns different. And I think the very first videos on machine learning and stuff will show you stuff like this and walk through how it works. And it is simple how they explain it, but I think that it made more sense for me actually learning the neuroscience first and then going into this, because I think I just had more of an image of what this was doing and why. Whereas before I was like, okay, these are just numbers and things. Like I don't fully understand the what they're meant to look like. It's very abstract until you get some experience like that. So this time it actually is like it's sinking in like on a much deeper level what each part is doing. And I understand like, okay, why should there be weights? Why should there be biases and things? So it's been much easier. And also getting that Python experience I think was really helpful, because I can actually look at the code and I don't understand every single last bit, but I understand like the format and what's happening, and okay, this is making like something happen. This is creating a class. So yeah, I think that's made it much easier to learn. Actually, in my last video, I mentioned that I want to write a book on self-learning. Actually, after that, I came home, I wrote so much. Like, I really have so much to say. And I think that like one of my main things that I have noticed is that everybody has their own unique way of learning a topic, and everybody has a unique way that their mind works and a way of easing into it. And I think a lot of people look at complex things that they deem complex, and this is the thing, is that they try to learn it in the order that that is presented to them, or okay, here's like a very linear sort of way that we have designed for you to learn this. and and just because that's a good starting place for one person doesn't mean it's a good starting place for another. I think sometimes you know, everybody has their own unique way of making connections, where it didn't help me to start at the it didn't help me to start at the start of machine learning. Like, here's the simplest bit of machine learning. It helped me to understand the psychology that I was looking at. And then because of that, I was understanding the simple neuroscience of what I was looking at. And then, you know, it just, I feel like then I built into this information, where I think that everybody, sometimes you don't like it's a process of trial and error of trying to figure out where do I start and what's the best starting place for me, and not looking at the information that seems so complex and thinking, oh, the complexity level is like way too far beyond for me. Usually that means that you need to find a different starting place and build up to there in a different route for you. So yeah, because I could have looked at this in the beginning and been like, this is way too hard for me, but it's like, it's not too hard for me. I just need different information first to start looking at this differently. And like you shouldn't assume that your starting point, you shouldn't assume that somebody else's starting point would be the same as your starting point. But you know what's interesting is that I was looking at Reddit the other day for like explanations on this and that stuff. Like I think it was on maybe Hopfield Networks, and somebody was trying to explain it. Like they made like a guide to explain it, and the person was trying to explain it very biologically through a biological example, and somebody responded that can they make a part that's just purely abstracted because using a biological example does not work for them at all. And I found that so interesting because I was like, I needed to understand the biological part to go into this, because for me, my abstraction muscle, it's not geared towards stuff like this yet at all. And I just find it so interesting. I think everybody just works so differently, and I think a lot of people jump into like, okay, I'm gonna get an intro book. I'm gonna find the introduction video, and you don't notice that sometimes even the introduction can just not be built for how you work, and everybody just needs a very different path to jump into something. Where I needed biological, somebody else needs like a pure math version. And like in my last video, I was watching a video that was like almost for high school students or something. Like it was very, very simplified, very, very metaphorical sort of example using like shoes and something else. And it seemed like it was great, but for me, it doesn't click for me when I put it in that context. It doesn't work, but for some people, it really does. So everybody just has such a unique thing that just clicks for them. And I think we expect that everybody is like, there's like a one size fits all approach, and there's just not. But that's the reason that I think people look at like, oh, I didn't get it right away, and they're like, I'm not smart enough to understand this. It's like, that's not the case. You can understand whatever you want to understand. It's just about finding your route if you really want to learn it, you know? I'm so confused as to how this XOR thing, XOR, is supposedly like the most complex thing ever, when I'm so confused. What is so difficult? I skimmed. I need to go back and understand why on earth that's such a horribly difficult thing for it to complete in all of these situations. Because it doesn't sound that hard when I read it, but I was like, maybe it is really complex. This was the first thing that I remember trying to learn. This was the thing that I was like, I don't understand, like, what's this? And then now I understand, like, for example, the biases and things, like, why is it like what's this bias thing, and why is it happening, and like why are there weights? I was like, why are there weights in a brain? And then I learned more about how brains learned, and then I understood. So yeah, I'm gonna come back to this because I want to actually like internalize it more. So I'm gonna skip it for now. Hinton, isn't this the one from the last video who won? Yes, this is definitely him. So at what point in between all of this, I'm guessing somewhere over here is probably where you get the Hopfield network. But is a Hopfield network a perceptron? See, this is what's confusing me. Is okay, so these are important things. Perceptrons are only feed forward. So there's this interesting so this is all this is all stuff that I wrote about for my final test in my neuroscience class, but we had I had to write an essay on all these different consciousness model types, and there's one where, so feed forward, so basically that means that all the information is just getting sent one way. So for example, our eyes, like when we are seeing, the the signals are really kind of being sent one way forward. But there's a theory, this one, the recurrent processing theory, I think that's what it is, where basically, is this one it? It's the idea that like we are conscious because information gets sent back and forth to like, instead of just going one way, it gets sort of like all these different brain parts like play off of each other and information kind of gets sent back and forth. And I think this is the one. But anyways, so I'm just curious, like, has anybody tried that on a computational model? And if so, like, if it didn't work, doesn't that like kind of debunk it? Maybe not. I don't know. Anyways, that's probably like something like, I don't know. I need to look into that. I'm sure there's some information on that. So a Hopfield network is a recurrent neural network, and it's not a perceptron because perceptrons only send information one way. The reason I was asking that is because I see this man's name here, Jeffrey Hinton. Is that his name? And I thought that he came after. I thought he was next. Like, I thought he was after Hopfield, but I must be wrong. So I guess he didn't, maybe he was already doing stuff before that, but that's not what they like gave him the prize for. They gave him the prize for the Boltzmann machine. Well, I think they're doing a lot of different things. Anyways, I feel pretty happy with this so far. There's probably so much more to learn, but I think this is like, I'm trying not to overdo it too, because then I'm gonna get tired and have no energy, as I've already had no energy this week before I even started this whole thing. So I'm gonna say that I learned this and we earned a second star, even though there's probably countless more things for me to learn, but we started the process and it'll continue. Because once I start, I think about it. I don't stop. Like I think about it throughout the day and it sticks in my mind and I come back to it. Like I already have more stuff that I wanted to learn about Hopfield networks. Oh, yeah, I'm gonna ask the question that I had. So, see, like, even though I earned the star, like, I'll probably come back and learn more because this is just what I'm trying to do with life. So, I definitely have earned now my bubble tea with any toppings. Okay, so this was from yesterday where I was looking at this this Hopfield network and I was asking questions about the code and stuff. And I wanted to know, like, I want to give it the code and I'm like, what part of this turns into a rule and what does the rule look like, if that makes sense. So this is the full code. I'm going to just like tell me the exact line of code that would turn into like one of these summations and things. I have ChatGPT free. They only let you ask like very little amounts now. So okay, so this is the one that has the rule. So for pattern in patterns, pattern equals NP reshape pattern one. Okay, that doesn't say me anything to me like just off the top. So weights plus equal NP dot pattern T pattern. So this is Hebbian learning. So this NP dot pattern T pattern thing would be this. So weights plus minus, plus equals this. Two neurons fired together strengthen synapse. Is that in the code? I don't see it at all. Is it this? Oh, okay. So this is basically what's happening. So if these two strength go together, it strengthens the synapse. And then if this is like not the same, it weakens it. It's making it easier to understand what the actual code is doing. So this is patterns. This is noisy patterns. I think this NP array thing has to do with what does this matrix of like information look like. And then, so that's why they use it twice, because I think this is just like a function or something to say like, this is what the pattern looks like. I don't know. So then when you come down here, where's NP zeros? So for pattern was that top one in patterns. Where is patterns? Let's find patterns. There's nothing called patterns. So NP zeros, 5 by 5. So all these different things here, I think are like little function type things. They must be built into Python because I don't see them defined like anywhere here. So I'm assuming that these are things that I don't know like how this works, that it's like NP dot. I'm assuming that dot, reshape, and zeros are just functions that are already built in, but I don't know why it says NP. Oh, probably because of NumPy. So these are all probably within the NumPy language. So NumPy dot, this thing that's probably in NumPy, NumPy dot thing in NumPy. I think that's what's happening. I think that's why they keep putting NP in front of it, because they want to specifically call that language in. And then they're doing zeros, whatever zeros is. Should we, I don't know, because this, can I do this? This is what I learned in my Python class, but I don't know if it applies in this format. No. Oh, I said it, I just wrote it wrong. Maybe you have to put NP in front of it in every situation. Okay, yeah, so then it's explaining everything here. So what does zeros do? Look how much Python I learned, bro. It's so much easier this time around. So return a new array of given shape and type filled with zeros. I still have more questions, but we're gonna come back to that. Noisy patterns array. Okay, well, anyways, all we need to know is that becomes Hebbian learning right here. So weights are plus or equal to that. And then removing self-connections, end-pit fill diagonal. Neuron does not excite itself. Biological analog ignores auto-apses. Prevents trivial. This is probably the part that makes it a Hopfield network because you make sure that the neuron doesn't excite itself. I don't know, I think. And then noisy patterns. This is the part that's like a really simple summation or like simple like weight. I don't know what they're called that I learned in the last video. Okay, so this is pretty interesting. It's also explaining that you could change up the plasticity rules in certain places. And then that's like where you start to learn stuff. So forgetting, you could make forgetting. You could prevent runway excitation. This will be cool for me because then I can start to think about like what's changing. What am I manipulating for my plasticity rules? This is really good info, and I'm probably gonna come back to this, but I think I've like maxed out what I can do this morning right now because I'm getting tired. One of my other tips, don't push your brain too much because it has its process. And it knows how much it can take at a certain given time, and it will do more. It'll do more with that amount if you give it the space to, instead of trying to be like, let me cram more information because it'll process deeper. And too many people try to do 8 hours of learning a day, and it's like, no, don't do that. In my hypothesis video for my entire massive project that I'm working on, I also made a playlist, like a work playlist of music that I was listening to back then. And I actually used to listen to this playlist religiously throughout like maybe like the first 5 months of this project. And then I got a bit tired of the music and I haven't listened to it since, and I haven't really had like a playlist. But I recently started listening to it again, and I even added like a song or two. I feel like there's like a whole different era of my project. I'm in like an emotionally different place with it because when I started this, I was like, is this gonna happen? Like, this is so brand new for me. And I had songs on here like Gravity from Wicked, Opportunity from the Annie movie, and I had Almost There from Princess and the Frog, and just other songs. Like, most of them didn't have anything to do with me emotionally, but also I hear like all the emotions from the beginning of this project in my playlist. I'm gonna link it below, but I thought it would be kind of fun to make a new one now for like this end stretch of my project. So I'm also gonna do that today, and I'm gonna link it below. All right, hours have actually passed. I've been working on this study guide, and I'm almost done, and I have a meeting for my real job in 20 minutes. I wanted to talk about something that really inspires me to work hard, and I think the more I've gotten into this project and it's gotten real, I've been feeling like, okay, so this is going to be my career one day and this is going to happen. And I have a lot of different I had so many complex mental health struggles around the time I was from like 18 to like 22. I mean, it's still mildly complex, but I think I just have a better handle on it and all this different stuff. I'm just older too. And I've been really inspired recently by the idea that I can pass this experience forward and hopefully other people around the age that I was back then one day can see like an example of somebody who dealt with similar stuff. Because when you're going through it, you're like, man, nobody understands. It's really hard to deal with a complex like traumatic experience, complex mental illness when you're young, and it's very isolating. And I've been watching this YouTuber recently. She just picked up like in popularity. She had a video pop off really recently,
and I subscribed to her at the time of that video, and she's been making a lot of content on her experience of mental illness. She's been talking about her schizophrenia, and she also talks about, if you scroll back on her channel, she also talks about a bunch of cool stuff about like I know she has one on integrated information theory and like all this cool stuff. And she's around the age that I was when I was so heavily struggling with mental health issues. There's other people on the internet that I kind of just check in on from time to time that struggle with like adjacent mental health struggles or whatever. Some of them older than me, whatever. But I do check in on these people from time to time to see like what's up. And I reflect on them like in my normal life. Like I'll just be thinking about them. And it sucks because I've been watching this girl go through so many thought processes that I went through when I was literally her age, which like, oh, not to even be condescending, but I was like, back then I felt so lost and I just felt like it was going to be forever and all these different things. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to suck forever. I'm never going to, like, this is my life now. Everything's over. All these different emotions. I was like, man, I literally felt all those things. I was so messed up inside, genuinely struggling with so much pain and so many difficult symptoms that I felt like I could not speak to anybody about. I felt alone, particularly being at college. Everybody was like living this like really normal college life, and I was struggling to get up and I was struggling to do all these different things. Like I was in so much mental pain and I struggled with a lot of difficult stuff around that time. And it sucks because she's been talking about like just feeling so doom and gloom, and it's like, oh my God, I understand you, because like I was you, and nobody had an answer for my disorder. That's why I'm literally here trying to find it as well. So it was really confusing for me, and I was like, this is just my life now. And I just see her and I'm like, man, this girl is so smart. She makes videos about such smart stuff, and I'm like, she would do so good. I was reading yesterday, I actually looked up Andy Clark and I was like, what is, like, where does he work? I was just curious. I was like, I don't even think I know enough. And I saw that he was actually not a neuroscientist, but a philosopher, actually. Like a cognitive philosopher. I'm like, this girl would do so great at that. I feel from the things that I've seen her make videos about. I'm like, there's so many options moving forward. Mental health is such a journey. When you're young, it's like your mental health, it's so it's even more challenging because especially if you're young and doing it by yourself, it's so challenging because you need guidance and like people just don't have it for you sometimes, and you feel like the weight of the world is on you. You have to survive. Trauma gets better. This is the thing, is that so many things I was like, my mind is severely broken. This is what I find, this is like my line of thinking, my whole entire research, my everything that I'm doing. Trauma does impact your symptoms so much, and it impacts the way your brain works, because like arousal, stress, whatever, it really impacts how you move through the world. And as I've healed through my trauma bit by bit, and I've gotten older, and I've been able to look back and be like, oh, okay, this is why this happened. I wasn't at fault. It wasn't, all these different things, like adult perspectives you get on that mental health struggle. Like, you do change so much. Your symptoms diminish so much, and they change and they improve. And it's hard. It's like, mental health is hard. I still struggle with my mental health all of the time still, and it sucks, but I also feel empowered and I feel like it's moving forward and all these different things. I felt so like this horrible, intense, like sharp pain of just being a mentally ill young person, and it just got better. Like it really did. And you just get also inspired by all the different things that you've learned. You become a wise person, and you use all that wisdom to do so much cool stuff as you get older. And I just like, sometimes I see young people my age suffering with it, and it's like, oh man, you're gonna go so far in life. There's so like, life does not end when you're 19, 19, 20. It feels like the end of the world, and it feels like you're so old, and it's like you are a child and you are a baby, and you're just going to learn so much more. And I'm sure there's a version of me that's like 35 or something, 45, looking back at me and thinking the same stuff, because I still get in my head about so many of my mental health struggles, but it gets so much better. And I just feel like I look back and I'm like, oh, I was a baby and I thought that everything was over, and it wasn't. And yeah, I'm like, it's one of those people, it's like, oh, if only I could talk to you. I don't know if you would listen, because when you're young, it's like, you're so in pain that you just really, you block out, I feel like, everybody, like, that's how depression and that's how trauma works. It's like, no, it is not going to get better. And it's like, I promise you that it does. And you get older and you're just like, oh my God, life is so different. And I was going through it so bad. And it still hurts to look and see like, oh man, I was struggling so badly, but I don't know. That's just what I feel like I want my career to like send that message back to people. That's why I work hard. I want people to see an example of someone who like made something of their life having those kinds of struggles as a young person, because it's tough. It really is. There's so many good tools out there. There's so many opportunities. And it's like when you're smart, like you can do it when you're 25, when you're older, when you've healed, but like, there's a lot of different ways to go about life, and life is not over when you're 19. I felt like life was over when I was 19. I was self-harming honestly at 18, just stopped when I was like 19, going through horrible dissociation, and then like all of these, I went through so many different layers of painfulness with my mental illness, and then it just came out the other end and I was like, oh, okay, like this is going up for me. I'm doing better. I learned a lot. I feel stronger. Like all these different things, it just works like that. You just heal. Like it really does happen. And I've been surprised at how many things I was like, is there something internally wrong with me? And it was just the trauma. It was truly just a trauma. I'm like, wait and see how much your healing through trauma is going to change the way your brain works. Because genuinely, I feel like a whole entirely different person completely. And I gained so much too. I was like, oh, wow, I was not doing neuroscience. I wasn't even a scientist. I was like, my gosh. Literally my brain and everything I was interested in changed so much as I committed to like my healing and everything. You will be surprised, like if this is you, like you will be surprised how much your entire life will change. Healing changes your whole freaking life. And I feel like it just sucks to hear this from people that haven't gone through it. You're like, okay, you have no idea. You have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. It's like, I promise you, it sucked. Like I know. And like it does get better. Also, struggling with mental health issues gives you this type of insight into the world that literally nobody, like most people do not have. It has been such a strength for me as a neuroscientist. Think nobody could figure out my disorder. Nobody could figure out like how does this disorder work? I figured it out in a second. Why? Because I lived it, right? And I had my experience looking at my own brain. And there's so many other ways that I think obviously neuroscience is like an obvious one. Psychology, cognitive philosophy, whatever. There's so many other options though, and I feel like mental health struggles give you an insight into the world that like we need to respect more in just across the board. Social work, working with people who are in foster care, working with people who have mental health struggles in some way, shape, or form, art, writing, like writing on the human condition, philosophies of the world, all these different things. It's like it is an asset if you take it as such. And I think that's how I got to where I got now, where I was like, at a certain point, like I was like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. I was like, no, I have to start taking this as a gift and taking it as like a, right now the job market is competitive, whatever. It's an edge. Any difference that you have, any new fresh perspective that you have, I was like, I have to see it as like an edge up. And it has been like I was able to sort out my own disorder. And I think there's so many other interesting ways that like mental health just shifts your perspective, and I think that we should embrace that more as well, just generally. But I was like, I'll be looking at this girl's channel and I'm like, oh my goodness, you are like a cognitive philosopher in the making or something. I was just like, oh man, yeah, it sucks sometimes to watch people, like I'll be watching accounts or whatever social media stuff of people with mental health struggles. I'm like, y'all are slaying harder than you think, and like don't let society get you down. Having a mental health challenge within academia or within the workplace or whatever, it's super duper challenging. It is. I will say I've had to sacrifice a lot of side stuff to make sure that I continue on. It's hard, like my body sometimes feels really tired or whatever. It took a lot of like pre-work, of getting myself up to a position that was stable. And then because I was struggled a lot in undergrad to make sure like everything got done and stuff. I was super dissociated and it was really hard on me. And I feel like even in masters, like I've had to pare down a lot of stuff. I definitely don't take enough time for self-care, I think. And my social life has been really limited, pretty much. Any chance I get, I can to take a break or like rest, I would take it. And I feel like I haven't been as active. Like I haven't, like there's a lot of things I was like, I had to like pare down a lot because it was important to me. So I had to make a lot of sacrifices. Definitely I wouldn't be here right now too if I hadn't gone through a period of therapy. Like I went through different therapy at different times. And obviously depending on your mental health struggle, like you need some kind of like, I feel like I only started this part when I already had a good grasp of my own mental health struggle. I was just thinking about it because I was like, this person will be talking about like, oh, I can never like do this and this and that because of my disorder. I'm like, it sucks and it's hard.
I feel like it's just about getting good support, getting good structure around you, knowing your disorder, and giving yourself time to set up for it and get things in place. I had to get a lot of accommodations when I was an undergrad, like a lot. Like I had to ask for extensions, make sure your advisor knows your mental health struggle, all these different things. But I was like, it definitely took a lot of sacrifice, but I feel like it helped me get better because I saw myself, I don't know, I just felt more empowered and I liked myself more and I felt good about the things I was doing. Where it's like, I feel like now all I need is like a long vacation. I need a vacation really bad and to go back to therapy after and all this stuff. But I'm like, it's genuinely been so rewarding. I feel like I have a whole different sense of myself. And yeah, it is a struggle to like, you know, operate in society. Honestly, I'm exhausted all the time. I feel dissociated a lot. I'm in school or at home or whatever, like still all the time. And like it is a struggle. I do have to work really hard, but like it got done. And I think like the more I elevate it up, it's like it'll get easier and easier because it's like, okay, now I have a CV, now I have research, now I have this and that. And it's just like it builds. So it was definitely a massive challenge to go through like a more severe mental health struggle when I was early ages, like teens, because I feel like you go out into the adult world and it's like, oh man, I feel so set back and I feel so in pain and it's like the world isn't really built for my life and I feel like that's the time that you're setting up life so much. But like it does take years. It took me years to get here, years of knowing myself, years of knowing my mental health, all this stuff, but like you do come out stronger and it's just about learning what kind of support that you need through life. You know, with good accommodations and with good support, you truly can get anywhere. Knowing yourself, taking time for yourself. That's why like I diminished a lot because I'm like, anytime I do get to rest, do some self-care, like I will, you know? Yeah, I just want I want people to see a good example of somebody who went through a really adverse experience, struggled with really painful and difficult mental health struggles, and still made it in life is like a vision for me. That's a goal that I really want to have because I haven't even talked about it all, but I had so many internal struggles, so many painful moments, so much like intense anxiety and stress and all this stuff that I'm still healing from, but like I did it and I got there. It takes a little bit of extra work, but like you can do it. I'm going to put, for proof that I know the struggle, I'm going to put some images here from my journals, from my old journals that I wrote when I was like 20. This was when I was recovering memories. I was actually 19. I was truly 19 when I was writing these things. Okay? Flashing on the screen. And now look at what I'm doing now. The glow up, the upgrade. Okay, that's from 19 to 24, not bad. So you see I know what I'm talking about. All right. Apologies for my unfiltered mental illness content, but if I can be bombarded by horrors beyond my comprehension every single day from the Epstein files, then you know what? I can post a little bit of content supporting people with mental health struggles. Please, YouTube, do not take my video down. Anyways, I actually might end this video here. I didn't expect, I'm actually doing like way more learning than I thought this week. So that's why this is really like, truly, this has been like, what can I learn in a week, like on crack, but I'm having a really bad hair day and I'm also wanting to do some self-care and stuff. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start the next video with my study guide for cognitive psychology done. So we're going to start the next video earning a star. In the meantime, I'm going to get my hair fixed. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to eat some yummy food. And I basically learned everything that had to do with computational neuroscience that was on my list. And my study guides are pretty much done. So I've mostly earned myself the Python book already. But I just thought it would motivate me to like skedaddle and put it in another video. And it would make sure that I learn even more and get everything done, you know? So goodbye. I've learned so much this week. I'm actually scared. Like, it's been a lot. Next time you see me, which will be later today, my hair is gonna look a lot better than this. I need to brush my hair. Thanks for watching.